name is David Crossland, and along with my wife, we run a company called Eval Blood Analysis, which is a blood testing company. My background, I am regarded as a specialist in image and performance enhancing drugs. I work in the courts, I work for the legal system, I advise the Advisory Council on Misuse of Drugs. I'm the president of the, I'm the chairman, I apologise. I'm the chairman of the Public Expert Advisory Board, which is attached to ASUK. ASUK oversee pretty much all steroid research in the UK, and it's linked with Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool universities, Birmingham as well, I believe. Do quite a bit of work with Professor Jim McVeigh. And I run a harm reduction company called Crosslands. Having said all that, a lot of people think that blood testing is only for anabolic steroid users, and that is not the case. But let's just get through the basics of what blood testing is. So you take a sample of blood and you test it, but you have to look for specific things. So there isn't a test that sort of shows you everything. When the blood sample goes through the testing machines, there are reagents for each individual item you're looking for. So if you want to know your vitamin D levels, then you have to put a vitamin D reagent in the machine and tell it to check vitamin D. So it's not a case of doing a blood sample and then that just tells you everything. You need to test for the specific markers that you're looking at, and as a result, each marker there is a cost. Some markers are more expensive because of the time it takes to analyze or the cost of the reagents. Some are relatively cheap. You tend to find with blood testing, the more you do, the better value for money comes, because a lot of the costing is based around the time the machines take to run, and certain tests can be done in parallel, so they can all be done at the same time. Now, as growing, I'm not going to get into the NHS politics of whether it's fit for service or not, etc., etc., etc. But the bottom line is the NHS is under increasing strain. And as a result, and budget constrictions, doctors generally will only test for what they think is initially associated with the symptoms you're presenting. If those tests come back negative, they're potentially going to extend their testing range to include more peripheral things, and slowly but surely they'll exhaust through a plethora of tests until they come to something that justifies how you feel, so to speak. The advantage of private blood testing is you can take these matters into your own hands, and it's much, much quicker. You can also be much more responsible for your health. A lot of people look at blood testing and go, it's expensive. It is. I'm not denying there's definitely a cost involved. But you MOT your car every year, and that sort of becomes part of the course. You just do it. You know you have to do it, so you do it, and you pay for any repairs that it may need to maintain and keep it up to safety standards. But we don't do that with our bodies. Now, our main test, our most popular test, which is we termed it the Athlete Pro. Probably an unfortunate name, really. It's more of an overall MOT. And this is replicated by several other testing companies. Youth Revisited do a version of it. In fact, it's exactly the same because they're our sister company. Meditechs do a version of it. I think even Optimal do as well. But there's several versions of that test that are all very similar. And you're looking at a price of around £200, give or take. Some companies more expensive, some are slightly cheaper. Relate that to fixing your MOT in your car. If your car went in and cost you 200 quid for an MOT and to be safe for another year on the road, I think most people would be fairly comfortable with that. But we won't spend that on our bodies. And the thing is, our bodies are much more expensive and much, much harder to fix when they go wrong. Early indications with stuff like this, insulin resistance. You can look at your HbA1c, and it'll give you an indication of whether you're moving towards early onset diabetes. But also your HbA1c, the higher it is, the more insulin resistant you are, the more that's going to impact your ability to lose weight, the more that's going to impact your ability to get a pump in the gym if you exercise. So there are things like that that you can manage and optimize more so you are a better version of you. If you have a high cardio output, then there's a possibility that your hemoglobin levels may be low. You may need to supplement iron. You may need to supplement B12 or folate to increase your red blood values. So these are all aspects that you can look at as a natural individual, not nobody that takes drugs or anything, but also depending on your lifestyle. You know, if you do like going out for a drink at a weekend, then definitely you want to be monitoring your diabetes, but you also want to be monitoring your lipids. Alcohol massively affects your lipids, which is why it causes fatty liver disease. And your lipids, your cholesterol, are a very important marker for your long-term cardiovascular health. Now, most of us have grown up through an era where we've been hammered about cholesterol. So I'm going to put it in very, very simple terms. There will be people that say, oh, but there's this, there's that, and the other. And yes, there is much more in depth to this. This is a very simple way of looking at cholesterol so people can understand it. Most of the cholesterol we use is produced by the liver, and then either LDL, low density lipoproteins, or HDL, high density lipoproteins, move that cholesterol either into the bloodstream or out of the bloodstream. So HDL removes cholesterol from the bloodstream into the liver, and if it's not used, the liver will process it and get rid of it. And LDL moves cholesterol from the liver into the bloodstream. The balance of cholesterol in our bloodstream is important. It's used for hormone production. It's a very base raw material for a lot of functions that our body does and requires. Too low can affect cognitive function and various other aspects and health in general. And too high can mean a build-up. This can form plaque, and over years, and this isn't a monthly thing, this is over years, that plaque can build up and narrow the artery. If the artery gets too narrow, it can create a blockage, or the plaque can break off and cause a blockage. That is effectively a heart attack, a myocardium infarction. And what people sometimes don't realize about a heart attack, it is where the blood flow that supplies your heart for your heart to function is blocked. Not particularly the blood flow that moves around your body. That's just regarded as a blood clot. So the heart pumps blood around the body, but it requires blood flow to operate. It requires feeding with blood, nutrients and oxygen. If that blood supply is blocked through plaque, then part of the heart is damaged and it can die, or the tissue can die. You then have a poorly functioning heart and will have health problems from there moving forward. And obviously cardiac arrest, heart attack, can be fatal. So, on your cholesterol readings, you will have one called HDL ratio. And that is a measurement of the LDL compared to the HDL. If that is high, it means your HDL is too low, or your LDL is too high, or a mixture of the both, and therefore you are leaving too much plaque in your bloodstream. So by managing these and being aware of these through blood testing, you can have better management of your health. Sometimes it's not particularly a case that your diet is poor in the sense of high LDL, but it's that there isn't enough HDL in there. There are genetic factors that go into this as well. Thyroid. A lot of people struggle with thyroid problems and don't even realize they have them. So this is another thing you want to be checking regularly. Prostate for men, 1 in 2 adults will get cancer, and the most common cancer for men is prostate cancer. If caught early, it is incredibly treatable. So that's something you want to be regularly checking as well. So as you can see, there's a host of markers that are important for just an average person. Then if you're an athlete and you want to perform, then it's not just a case of these markers being okay, you want them optimized. So with performance, you want your hemoglobin towards the upper end, so you have more oxygenation and nutritional transport. You want your vitamins optimized. So here is where you can start to manage your levels by knowing where they are and supplementation or changes in your diet. And then we come to people who use any sort of substance, be that alcohol, recreational drugs, or steroids for that matter. All these chemicals, or even long-term medications to be fair, all these chemicals have an effect on your body. They can cause stressors, they can cause damage if they are not checked and managed. So then it becomes much, much more important and much, much more responsible that if you have a lifestyle that includes any of these type of factors, that you are actively keeping an eye on where they can cause you problems. Recreational drugs do have impacts on the heart. Now, to be fair, blood testing is not very good for checking heart health. You'd need an echocardiogram for that, and you're looking at around 150 to 250 pounds if you go privately to have that done. But it will show you markers that affect cardiovascular health, blood thickness, cholesterol levels, those sort of things. Alcohol will affect hormone levels. Alcohol will affect your blood sugar sensitivity. Anabolics will affect hormone levels, also blood thickness, also cholesterol, and vitamin D as well, actually. So there's quite a few factors there that need to start to be managed. The more wayward, I think maybe a good word, you are with your lifestyle, the more extreme you are with your lifestyle, or the more you partake in various aspects of either recreational drug use or socializing, then the more you're going to need to keep an eye on your health. And that's going to require some personal and private intervention if you're going to do it correctly. So there is a big importance with health, because once it's gone, trust me, it is very difficult to get back. And it's not something you can pay to be fixed very easily either. But it's not just a case of those that have different lifestyle choices. It is also something that just the average person, even if it's just an annual MOT, can benefit from. And unfortunately, in the current climate with the NHS is becoming more of a responsive service where it deals with emergencies, accidents and chronic illness, rather than a proactive service where it looks at managing people's health to prevent future illness. They do campaigns and stuff in the terms of marketing and advertising, but actual testing and that side of things is very limited because they have to keep resources for the people that need it the most. So it's just unfortunately a sign of the current climate financially. But yeah, there's a big benefit from blood testing. You can overdo it though, and this all comes with a caution. There are a lot of companies out there and there are a lot of people out there which will give you shopping lists of blood tests that you need. A large number of them for the average person are unnecessary. Even for people who use anabolics, they're unnecessary. And a larger number of them are inaccurate. So glucose readings, doing that via blood has to be tested very, very rapidly. If you're doing a sample at a clinic that's then going to be sent off to the lab, or you're doing a postal blood, your glucose readings that come back will not be accurate. Your potassium readings that come back will not be accurate. Your calcium readings that come back will not be accurate. So there's no point doing any of these tests. Same with insulin response, same with growth hormone response. All of these things are not going to be accurate unless they're tested within a matter of an hour or so of the sample being taken. So be careful, stick to the basics to start. A comprehensive package wants your full blood count, which is all your reds and whites. It wants your cholesterol, it wants your kidneys, it wants your liver, it wants your inflammation markers, it wants your HbA1c. For a male, it will want your prostate. A few vitamins would be handy. Inflammation markers like CRP, CK, thyroid, autoimmune based on thyroid, antithyroid globulin, antithyroid peroxidase are very commonly falsely elevated, so just be wary that they only come into play if there is actually a problem with the thyroid. If thyroid levels are normal, those two tests are not required. So they could possibly be missed off, but they're not expensive anyway, so most companies will throw them in as a sort of bonus. And that is pretty much it, I think. So, yeah, take care of your health, and it starts by seeing where your health is. As I said, the NHS is struggling, so it is time that we start to step up and take personal responsibility for our health. And at the very least, we should be looking at an annual MOT, irrespective of our lifestyle choices, because some conditions just creep up on you without you knowing. Okay, hopefully that was useful and gave some insight into blood testing, and I hope to speak to you soon.